Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episodes of Experts Talk, brought to you by MarketScale. I'll be your host for today, Gabrielle, stepping in for Daniel, and I am thrilled to be joined by our experts this morning, Dennis Yu, Chief Technology Officer of Blitz Metrics, as well as David Kemp, Healthcare Lead here at MarketScale. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, how is everybody?
Doing fantastic. Awesome. Well, thanks so much to both of you for joining us today to get into today's topic, which is just a deep dive analysis into the power of influence in B2B marketing. It's an incredible topic because in recent years, I'm sure we've all seen the realm of influencer marketing has just seen unprecedented growth, expanding more than 20 times since 2016, which is a huge number. I mean, this surge is not just a fleeting trend, it's proved, but a powerful movement that's been poised to push the creator economy to a staggering $500 billion by 2027, according to Goldman Sachs. I mean, platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok now dominate with nearly 5 billion monthly active users combined, driving this explosive growth. I mean, historically, influencer marketing has been seen as the domain of consumer brands, but a significant shift is underway since influencers are no longer just trendsetters for consumer products, but they're also becoming pivotal players in the B2B sector as well. So, I mean, we're seeing businesses increasingly recognizing the value of authentic, credible voices to share validated information and also foster trust within their professional communities. We're going to get into all of this and much more, but first, we're going to hear a quick word from our partner, Go Rogue. Are you ready to hear about a company that's taking businesses to the next level? Well, Go Rogue is the game changer that you've been waiting for. Go Rogue specializes in creating tailored marketing strategies that drive growth and boost brand visibility. Their expert team combines innovative techniques with proven methods to deliver outstanding results. So whether it's enhancing social media presence, optimizing SEO, or crafting compelling content, Go Rogue has it all covered. Don't settle for average. Go Rogue and watch your business soar. Visit goroguenet.net today. All right, let's go ahead and get back into it. All right, well, our exploration tonight will cover key insights from Ogilvy's groundbreaking global research, which surveyed over 550 senior B2B decision makers across 11 markets. This research highlights the growing acceptance and as well as the strategic integration of influencers in B2B marketing, with 75% of businesses already leveraging influencers and 93% planning to increase their use. So let's go ahead and get into it. Gentlemen, let's talk about first global growth. I'm going to open it up to the panel here. I mean, what factors do you believe have contributed most significantly to this growth we've seen by 20 times in influencer marketing since 2016? Let's open it up.
Well, I think this 20 times growth is kind of a fad because you are conglomerating social media, people on Zoom, podcasts, YouTube channels, Clubhouse. There's so many different avenues of sharing expertise that now everyone is an influencer. And the new term for influencer is creator. So there's no question that digital marketing and social media channels and all these different tools make it very easy for anyone who starts a Twitter channel or has a Zoom account to say that they're an influencer. But I think deeper, from a B2B point, we have a community, whoever our audience is, and they want to be able to connect with us. They want to be able to meet with us at a conference. They want to be able to talk to a knowledgeable sales rep. They want to find more information than what you can get out of a brochure or a white paper. And I think this deeper level of knowledge is causing everyone to jump into this influencer marketing bandwagon, largely off of what we see in B2C. But because we're talking about a B2B audience here, I think it's very different. I was talking to my friend Roberto Blake yesterday, and he said, if you want to get 1 million followers, like a B2C brand, then go for personality, go for crazy camera effects, do things that are flashy, and you have young adults doing things like that. But if you want to go for B2B and you want to build expertise and you want to be respected in a particular niche, then share expertise around answering particular questions. And that is a realm that anyone, even someone like me who turns 50 this year, can play in. And I think if we separate out what influencer marketing really means for those of us in B2B, It's really just connecting with other people that we already know at conferences, people that are already knowledgeable in these other areas, and merely just interviewing them on a Zoom, for example, then repurposing that into a YouTube, into a blog, into a LinkedIn, into an Instagram reel, into all of that. And that is what makes up this 20x, 30x, 50x growth, because there's more content being repurposed because the algorithm is getting smarter at being able to share. It looks like there's explosion of content, but really in the world of B2B, there's very little competition. It's very easy to win in B2B. You look at your competition, how much content are they producing? How many other experts are they interviewing? This is a ripe opportunity for all of us to not think about it as influencer marketing, but connecting with people who are truly knowledgeable and influential, not because they say they're influential, but because of the people that would buy from us, who are the people that they respect, and are we building connections with them? It's not because we're paying them to be an influencer, right? We're building connections.
Absolutely, and B2B needs that mindset shift. I mean, we're using the term influencer. It's really thought leadership here in B2B. Anybody can be an influencer. Anybody can be a thought leader. Maybe, David, you could speak a little bit to that, because this is, as Dennis was saying, something that B2B can really take a grip on right now. I mean, we're seeing a lot in B2C. This is a ripe opportunity for B2B to get into the ground floor of B2B marketing using this influencer landscape.
Yeah, I mean, for those of us that are in this space, right, who have done it for a little while, we call influencers and experts or creators, they're interchangeable, right? But for somebody who is less involved with creating or hasn't done much in the past, the term influencer it's intimidating. And so you get some pushback, especially by, the people who aren't on social media a whole lot. They associate influencer with TikTok and a younger crowd, and they don't want to be a part of that necessarily. But the term expert, educator, those are terms that people can relate to in B2B. We use them interchangeably. They come across very differently to a crowd that hasn't done this traditionally. And so I think that's been a big shift. When we're positioning people as experts and we're letting them share their thought leadership and their experience, their knowledge, they do that every day anyway, right? Now we just want to do it through media and use their expertise to influence and build trust and credibility. But if you come at it that way, it becomes less about social media, it becomes less of this trendy thing and more about what these experts are doing all the time in every conversation that they have, which is educating, engaging, guiding whatever community that they're in front of.
Absolutely. And, this isn't something that can really be put to the side or shelved for a rainy day, because, we had this projection of $500 billion going into the creator economy by 2027, according to this report. How is this going to be impacting businesses and marketers globally? Is this something that marketers can kind of put to the side and say, it's a fad. It's not going to last long.
It is a fad, but then it isn't a fad. I see a lot of people in B2B, kind of like what David was alluding to, where they're intimidated and they feel like they have to have a social media strategy, or the big boss says, hey, I read this article and all the other CEOs are investing in an influencer strategy. We need to collect UGC. We need to pay money for Gary Vaynerchuk to come in. We need to have singing and dancing teenagers reacting to the latest viral trends on TikTok. That's ridiculous. Think about, as David said, who are the people that your community respects? How about people on your team, not just the leaders? How about your customers? How about other colleagues? How about people that you'd meet at a conference, right? Suppliers or other vendors, other people that share some kind of angle. And let's remove this influencer, I'm very important kind of thing. A friend of mine, Landry St. Clair, she's never been on a podcast. She's never done any videos. She doesn't want to show herself, but she runs digital marketing for an oil company that supplies restoration companies, like water, fire, flood damage companies. About as boring as it gets, right? She's not an influencer in any particular way. But when you find out that her company is the one that supplies the oil for Tesla and some of these other huge companies, that's kind of cool. And there's some stories that are behind the scenes. And I met her in Houston a couple weeks ago, and I said, Landry, look at all these cool people that you're hanging out with. You're already talking to them on Zoom. You're already holding events, and your suppliers and customers are coming together. Why don't you just turn the camera on? Your iPhone, right? And that caused a huge shift in her mind, because she realized, wait a minute, I really am an influencer, not because I'm trying to sing and dance or get 1 million followers or look at my Lamborghini, but because I'm asking the questions of other restoration companies that everyone else also wants to know about. I'll give you one other example. 2 years ago, I had a health scare. And long story short, my doctor said, you need to change your life or you're not going to be on this planet for very long, right? I don't know if you ever had that kind of wake-up call. And I did a lot of research medically on what I needed to do. And I reached out to this guy who I thought he would never respond to me, Dr. Philip Ovadi. He wrote this book, Stay Off My Operating Table. And I said, I have some questions about my metabolic health, about my blood pressure, about my blood scans, about these different things. And I said, can I interview you on my podcast? And I'm a nobody. And he said, why, sure. And it was so good. And I shared it out there. And then I started interviewing all these other doctors, the top people in stem cell and in HRV, Tony Robbins, medical director, like all these other people. And what I'm trying to show you is that you don't have to be a big deal. You can reach out to almost anybody in your industry. I mean, not like Elon Musk or Richard Branson or whatever, but anyone in your industry, right? Not an A-list celebrity. And they'll almost always say yes to you. And now you've solved your company's UGC influencer marketing strategy merely by hopping onto Zoom like you already do without fancy camera equipment and whatnot. And then that becomes a podcast. It's a YouTube. It's a TikTok. It's a LinkedIn. Like that one Zoom call is now 10 pieces of content. It's an article, it's in your company's newsletter. Like think about how many different ways you can remake that content into something else. And you've nailed your UGC strategy, you've nailed your paid strategy, you've nailed your social media strategy, you've nailed all this other stuff. And it all comes from, like David was saying, just interviewing other people on things that you care about, things that your customers care about. You don't have to be a big deal. You don't have to hire a third-party agency to try to line up these influencers for you. You don't need to hire a $100,000 professional video, whatever kind of setup with red cameras. You can do that if you want, but don't let that get in the way of you connecting with other people who have expertise. I think that's the key thing in seeing so many people in B2B give all these excuses on why they don't get into it, because there's all these supposed barriers to just having conversations with people that you already talk to. It's that easy. Yeah,
you're already doing it. Now, get credit for it. In some ways, I mean, but is it a fad? No, I don't think it's a fad. It's not a fad because of how cost effective it is. Dennis, you just touched on it. It's cost effective because these experts are already on your payroll. You don't have to go hire anymore. You already hired them. They're on your staff because they're good at what they do and they know the industry that you're in. It's silly. It's almost small-minded to not unlock their voice, to not tap into the gold that lives in their brains. That's why they're there. So it's cost effective because you don't have to go hire new experts. They're already there. Secondly, if they're there already and they can create content, that content is owned. You don't have to go buy advertising, right? You don't have to go pay for media. It's owned. So then you can reshare it, redistribute it. You own it forever. And so it's a lifelong asset. And so the cost effectiveness of this approach, I think, secures it. It's not a fad. It's not a trend that's going to go away because it's very effective. We'll get into that here in a minute. But it's also very cost effective. I mean, it grows your business for the least amount of expense. What more can you ask for in a lot of ways? So I don't think it's a fad. I think it's here to stay, and I think you're going to see more and more people buy into it. I mean, just look at the age of these decision makers now. How do they learn? How do they engage? How are they entertained in their personal lives? It's through media. It's through influencer marketing. Why does that change? Why would it change when they come into the business setting, into the professional setting? It doesn't. It's not. It's gonna remain the same, and more people are gonna jump on this bandwagon.
And they should. And Dennis, as you were saying, I mean, all it requires, it's as simple as a mindset shift. It's something you're already doing. It reminds me of something my old ballet professor said, which is work smarter, not harder, right? I mean, and that's what we're doing here too. It's like, use the resources at your disposal. You don't need to go out, as David was saying, and spend all this excess money on advertising and strategy when you can work with what you've got, and you can go spend that excess. But why would you do that when you've got the gold mine and the resources that you have right at your disposal? Why not start there first and then explore elsewhere? But, I wanted to get into the effectiveness of community-generated content, user-generated content, UGC, specifically in influencer marketing, but also within the context of the platforms that are popular today for B2C, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. How is that shaping the future of influencer marketing? And then also, just to put a B2B spin on it, where does LinkedIn fit into all of this? So with these social platforms, what's going on with UGC? How effective is it? What role is it playing currently?
Let me give a shot at that. So my friend Perry Marshall, who has the #1 best-selling book ever on advertising, Google Ads, right? #1 bestseller on Facebook ads. I was a co-author. We sold 800,000 copies of that book. What he's done is interview his clients. And this is the ultimate in UGC. So instead of it being a testimonial, oh, I love Perry Marshall, I love his mastermind, he's such a good person, I would definitely pay him money for services. That's a testimonial. But instead is, hey, how did you grow your business from 10 million to 100 million in the last couple of years? What were some of the mistakes that you made along the way? What were some of the things that you learned? And interviewing these people in like a webinar, podcast, Zoom kind of style. That's the thing. That one 45-minute segment gets repurposed into every other kind of content that we talked about. Now, the I found most interesting in the last couple of years, full disclosure, TikTok paid me a lot of money for this. They said, you know what, Dennis, you and Perry already have the #1 Google Ads book, #1 Facebook book. Why don't you do one on TikTok? And I said, I don't really know that much about it. I know they copied like Facebook's ad platform and whatnot. So TikTok gave a lot of their top customers in B2B. And what I did was I interviewed these people, and they shared, these were people who were winning, doing lead gen, making their salespeople like mini celebrities. And each of them was sharing one tip. Here's one tip on how to get more out of your insurance claim and not get denied. Here's one tip on how to get more pest control leads. Here's just one tip. And the key is to make that one tip, which can be pulled out of a 45-minute webinar, but you pull out that one tip, and that's the snippet that can run on TikTok, for example, and you run ads against it organically, and then you put ads. It can run on Instagram. It can be on Twitter. You can put it on LinkedIn. You can turn it into an article. You can turn it, you know the analogy of Mexican food, right? Beans, cheese, rice, tomatoes, beef can be a tortilla, tostada, an enchilada, chalupa, burrito, You're remaking that content into many different formats. And what you see on the paid side, so UGC is not having to pay your best clients and customers who already love you to authentically talk about their experience. So you're elevating them. It's not a testimonial. And then what you see with Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok, and YouTube, which is part of Google, you can now pay to have the algorithm find other people that are basically lookalikes of your existing client base automatically without creating lookalike audiences, without having to upload these different custom lists and buy lists and that kind of data swizzling we used to do. And on TikTok, for example, they're called Spark ads, but they're like Facebook boosted posts. You're taking the content that other people have made or co-created with you, and you're running ads against it and saying, Facebook, find other people that are just like these customers of mine. I'm connecting my CRM, I'm using the conversion API, all that kind of data stuff to show Facebook, Google, YouTube, TikTok, this is who my ideal customer is. Find more people that are like that. And here's people that I've interviewed. Here's a 45-minute webinar. I'm going to cut it into 5 or 6 points. There's AI tools that do it automatically, finds the highlights. And you've solved UGC. You've solving multiple channels of social. You've solved advertising all at the same time. Isn't that incredible?
Well, you also solve PR. It's almost like a reverse PR approach or strategy, right? I mean, instead of going out and looking to be, looking for earned media opportunities on other publications, so I lead the healthcare vertical here at MarketScale, right? And let's say I want to get in front of VPs of revenue cycle. What's the best way to get in front of VPs of revenue cycle? Have a VP of revenue cycle on my podcast. And then what is that VP of revenue cycle going to do? They're going to share it out. And who is she connected to? Who's he connected to? VPs of revenue cycle. Right, so it's not just my channel, it's my guest's channel, and then all of their connections, all of their network. Right, it is, and it's organic, it's cheap, right? And so, yeah, you can be very strategic with who you bring on to your show. I think the other thing to consider, like you talked about TikTok a lot, I'll just talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, if you were to do an analysis on, the creators or the influencers that are creating the most or have the most influence on LinkedIn, I bet it's a very small percentage. We're early in that phase right now. And so you can make an impact there if you're consistent with it. But LinkedIn is like everything else. It's a networking platform. So if you consider what topics you're discussing and at what time you're discussing those, is it relevant? Is it timely? And then you get somebody on that can teach that community something new. If you can get somebody on your channel that can solve a challenge that the majority of that community is facing, it's going to be powerful. It's going to be impactful for you in your business development and growing your sales cost effectively. But that's almost a byproduct, because really you're delivering a solution to the community that's facing pain, that's dealing with a challenge. And that's how you build trust, that's how you build credibility. And especially in B2B, business doesn't happen without trust. Business doesn't happen without credibility. And so you're laying the groundwork, you're laying a framework to be really successful in B2B when you're teaching somebody something new through the voices of the people who have lived it, breathed it, and overcome that challenge themselves.
Well, do you think that's why initially B2B has been kind of skeptical about influencer marketing? I mean, what have been some of the main reasons that have kept people from embarking in this area? I mean, and on the flip side, I mean, who have been the companies that, have stood against that and been like, no, this is the way forward? I mean, what have been some successful B2B influencer marketing campaigns? I mean, what are both of those sides?
I think it's crazy that literally the B2B workplace is like the last place people feel empowered to share their opinions, their experience, and share their expertise. For some reason, I mean, everybody has a platform they're empowered to share, except for the B2B workplace. Thankfully, that's starting to change, but it definitely is a challenge to the status quo and to the traditional pillars of marketing. For a long time, we hired 4 marketers and said, okay, 4 marketers, we need you to create everything for everybody. Ready to go. And that's just not scalable. The community is, I think this is where it's shifted, okay? People buy in their personal lives through the brands that they learn from, are engaged with, and inspired by. And how do you do that? You do it through media. And I think in B2B, we finally started to realize our community is looking to learn from us, engage with us, be inspired by us every day of the week from anywhere in the world. So those 4 trade shows you go to every year, not enough. The ad campaigns that you run that you pay a ton of money for, not enough. Who likes to be advertised to? Okay, if you don't like to be advertised to, why are you doing that to your customers? Why are you doing that to your community? And so, thankfully, it's changing. We're evolving because our experience in our personal lives is now our expectation in our professional setting. And so I think just the traditional nature of B2B is what delayed this evolution. What do you think, Dennis?
David, B2B is ripe for dominating. Every time I've seen B2B companies fail on this influencer marketing, UGC, PR, whatever you want to call it, it's actually because of this secret fear of being judged, of boss not approving it, of having to get approval from the director of marketing and the other agency and all the other people involved. And I'm so busy. Now I got to put together a whole plan, and I don't want to look bad and all this, or I don't even know how to go about this. I don't want to, shake up the apple cart. There's all these, I don't like my hair. There's all of these excuses or reasons that keep people from not wanting to do it. But I've seen it work in so many companies, even in the most stodgy of businesses, like IT services and healthcare. And my friends at, Marketo or GoDaddy, and look at these guys that are using Super Bowl ads. Now they're doing very real, authentic cell phone stuff like what David's talking about, where we're just walking around in the hallway and talking to employees about what are they thinking, about what is their life like. And it feels like you're really connecting with that company. You hear this, oh, you should be authentic. And people are like, yeah, be authentic. But what that really means is the production value doesn't have to be as high all the time. I mean, sometimes you want to have like TV commercial production, but sometimes you want to feel like you're FaceTiming with a friend. And then when that gets put on Snapchat and LinkedIn even, and Twitter and whatever, you really do build that mid-funnel connection with the company, because the move to 60 to 70 plus touches to be able to generate a sale now in B2B, where it used to be 6 to 10, right? You'd hire an MBA and they'd spend the money. Because there's more touches, you have to build more trust, and people are naturally just smarter and more cynical than you think about the kind of like buy our stuff that we see B2B marketers doing. So back to what we were saying before, if you co-create content with other people who are experts, you don't have to be the expert. You just need to ask these people questions. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, Danny Lee Brandt, he's 20 and he does pest control marketing. And he didn't know anything about pest control, but he's been doing it for a year, and he's been focusing just on pest control, interviewing all the top people in pest control. Probably only got 500 people on his YouTube channel, I think only 6,000 on his LinkedIn. But he has videos that are getting 200, 300 hours of organic watch time, because he's interviewing the top people in that industry. And he's using, I think, like a MacBook Pro, and like I don't think he's using nothing fancy, right? He's not a professional interviewer. Doesn't mean he sucks. But here's one thing, he just did it.
Yeah.
I asked Steve Sims about this last year. I said, Steve, dude, I can't believe I saw you were hanging out with Sir Richard Branson on Necker Island, and then a couple weeks later, you're hanging out with Elon Musk and doing stuff with rockets. Like, dang, how did you get the guy on your podcast, and how are you connected with? And I was asking all these questions. Says Dennis, you know the answer. Don't be stupid. You just ask. Yeah, Steve, but don't you have to like ask a certain way? I mean, they'll say no to you because they're so important, and I'm nobody. And Dennis, just ask. That's it. Just ask.
That's good.
Try it. And if anyone here is trying this and they get rejected, tell me. I would love to see that, because I've given this to people that have given me all the excuses about why they can't do a 30-minute Zoom with a few people. Right, I've heard it takes more time to make the excuses than to freaking do the thing, right?
Yeah.
I've heard all the excuses.
So very true.
But then when they do it, they say, you're right. They said yes. I can't believe they said yes. I told you.
I told you so. So, friend Dennis on
me if it
LinkedIn,
doesn't work.
and
It
message
works.
him.
Yeah. Hey, Dennis, you want to be on my podcast?
I'll say
This
yes.
is a great time to ask.
All right,
Hey.
let's go.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about actionable items for businesses who are looking to form these strategic partnerships. They're listening to us, and they're like, we were talking about trust earlier. Well, how do we form key relationships within B2B influencer spaces, authentic relationships that are trustworthy for your business? And then also, you got that, you secured that relationship. Now, how will businesses measure the impact of these relationships that they have with these influencer partnerships? How are they going to look at this ROI?
Can I jump in there real quick?
Yeah, of course.
This is so easy. Take 3 of the customers. They don't have to be your best ones, that you can interview about their success, about how awesome they are, because we're going to use that, put it out there, tag them, and they become our marketing, right? Like David said. 3 people in the industry that you know, you met at a conference, for example. Could be colleagues that you work with, the vice president of engineering or whatever, like 3 other people like that. And then 3 people that are friends of friends. Maybe they're a bit more respected, but you have a friend of a friend that's connected to them. And now you have 9 30-minute Zoom calls. Do those Zoom calls, and you don't have to do a lot of work. I mean, you could go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm going to be interviewing Landry St. Clair. What kinds of questions do you think I should ask her based on what we're trying to position our company for, right? Or you go to Google, think about the things you want to rank on. Do a search on that, and below it'll say people also ask. Those are the questions you need to look at, right? So when you put all that together and you interview these people on Zoom for 30 minutes or whatever tool you want to use, in person is better. Then at the end of those interviews, you say, okay, wow, that was so awesome, David. We talked about this, this, and this. Now, let's just quick one-liners back and forth on why should people listen to this podcast. Hey guys, David and I just talked about why you need to, why your influencer marketing strategy isn't working. Tune in now for this one tip on whatever, kind of that we're recording the hook or the trailer at the end after we've had the discussion. When we do that at the end, now you've got all the stuff to get people to actually watch the content. I see most people, they do podcasts or Zooms or interviews, and they never record the hook or promo. That's like having this Hollywood blockbuster movie, but there's no trailer. No one's going to watch the thing. You need to create a trailer. So if you do that combination, now you can run it through Descript or these other tools, and you have all your social media snippets. You have your articles. You have YouTubes for weeks, right? From, let's say, 9 of those 30-minute episodes, which will probably give you like 50, 60 different clips. You have everything that you need, including running $1 a day against that to find which ones win, especially on LinkedIn, to generate leads. You can run all kinds of ads against that on Facebook, on YouTube, right? It's the same content, just very slight changes on how you lead gen.
Yeah, and the ROI is pretty simple. You can look at it 2 different ways. I'll say it this way: what's the ROI of your mom? Right? It's
that's
everything.
What Gary says.
It's everything, right? So
Every time I say that, that's what Gary says back to me. No, you really can measure it. What you do, you take the benchmark.
But you really can. Here's the easiest way to measure it. Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to measure it is
on Facebook ads, on Google ads, whatever. Our average cost per lead through Salesforce is $72, and our cost per sales qualified lead or marketing opportunity is $120 or whatever it is. Okay, cool. If I can beat that, will you be happy? All you got to do is beat the average, right? Beat the bar that the rest of marketing's against, and you'll crush them.
Yeah, give it time.
Your cost per lead, everything's better.
Give it time. Take a look back. Did you spend more? Did you spend less? Did you make more? Did you make less? It's pretty simple when you boil it down. The challenge or the mistake that I see a lot of people make is that they think it's going to happen overnight, or it's going to happen with one video, or it's going to happen with 2 videos, or it's going to happen with a podcast. It's not. Just like anything in life, you do it consistently, you do it with intention and focus, and give it time. And then take a look back and ask yourself, do the math. Did you spend more? Did you spend less? Did you make more? Did you make less? The answer to those 2 questions are going to prove that this strategy, there's a reason it's been adopted by the best brands in B2B. And it's because it's cost effective, it grows their business at scale, and they recognize the opportunity to differentiate.
Absolutely. Well, as we start to conclude here, I want to start looking towards the future from all this data and everything we've talked about involving this report, all these numbers we've seen. I mean, what trends do we foresee happening in the next 5 years for influencer marketing? We could talk about them in both B2B and B2C sectors, but how can B2B prepare for this? With all this money flooding the creator economy, how can they best prepare? What are your best action items?
Well, B2C is largely still going to be driven by people that are sponsored, making commercials, product placements, e-commerce kinds of things. But B2B, I think people would disagree with me, but I think it's going to be non-paid when it comes to these influencers. Because anyone who truly has expertise, who truly believes in something, is going to be a user of that product or service. They're not going to be like George Foreman talking about some brand of vitamins or something like that, right? It has to have real, authentic depth. And that only comes from people who love your product and service because they actually love your product and service, not because you can see when someone's being paid for something. But what you're going to see money being put into is the promotion, the tuning of that content, the repurposing of the content that can be turned into a lead magnet. Because you can take the summary of the 9 or 10 interviews you did, turn it into a book or some kind of like distillation, and people will put their email in, right? Like a Facebook lead ad, LinkedIn lead ads, TikTok has lead ads, YouTube has the same kind of thing. And so I think you're going to see more measurement that's possible because of all the things with conversion API. I think SEO is going to change largely because of this influencer marketing, because it's going to come from the paid social side. The paid social side will influence, well, through data, the data leak that you saw with Google a couple weeks ago, is triggering how Google's processing what shows up in search, what LinkedIn shows up in search, largely driven by the social signals and the click-driven signals. You'll see these colored boxes, which are called knowledge panels, starting to pop up. And I think that like LinkedIn and any kind of search-driven or feed-driven experience is going to have to be powered by this consolidated AI answer, right? That's kind of what ChatGPT and these guys are forcing us to do, is create that. And whoever adopts the strategy of, like what David was saying, start by answering those real questions. 1-minute answers, get them on a podcast where you can like hit them with 10 of them, that kind of thing at once. You're going to be ahead of your competitors. You don't have to go Gary Vaynerchuk and make 100 pieces of content per day. You just need to make more content than the other people in your industry. And the good news is they probably suck.
Yeah, just start with the one.
Yeah, just get started, just do it. But I think you hit on something, Dennis, that is going to become more and more important. These AI ChatGPT models are fed content. They need content, and more consumers, buyers are going to be going to ChatGPT and other models like that, asking for advice on what solution will solve their problem the best. And if you're not creating content, if you're not feeding that engine with content, that model will have no reason and no way to recommend you. And the Googles of the past, it's gonna it's the new model is artificial intelligence and ChatGPT, and that's where we're getting our answers now. You got to feed that engine. The other thing I'll say is, I think the next iteration of this is going back to the authenticity piece that you touched on, Dennis. Like 15 years ago when I started in business, I would write handwritten letters. Why was that important? Well, it showed that I did something personal for them, paid attention to them. And then it's a little bit of vulnerability, right? You get to see my handwriting. That's not perfect. I might misspell something because I don't have spell check on my own handwriting, right? And it's authentic. It's personal. Now, those same principles apply to this opportunity to be authentic through media, through video, and proving your expertise, but not being perfect, right? We're live right now. I've messed up throughout this, this recording or this broadcast, but that's what real people do. And just like a poorly written handwritten note, a personalized video or a video of some kind explaining a solution to a problem that our industry is facing, even if it's an engineer who's not a professional broadcaster or podcaster, even if it's an executive who doesn't really like the lights and camera, those things can work. Imagine if the marketer at Tesla told Elon Musk he couldn't do interviews because he was a little different than most. How big of a miss of an opportunity would that have been for Tesla? But they put the expert out there in front of the people. They let him do what he's best at, which is explaining and sharing his passion for the industry and the brand. And it's done wonders for that company, even though there's been hiccups along the way. So don't be afraid to let your authentic experts be themselves on camera and be a marketer, a creator, an influencer for you. Will there be mistakes? Absolutely, but that's who we are. That's what people are. And so let your people be who they are and be a resource for your community.
Absolutely. As we start to wrap up here, I'll leave us with this. I mean, were there any last points, surprising insights from this global study on B2B influencer marketing that kind of stood out to any of you that you were just surprised by?
Dennis, I'll let you go.
I'm just surprised that more people are making excuses on not creating content than creating the content. And they hide behind the wall of, well, we need a process to be able to deal with these influencers. I need to have someone else in there. I'm going to insulate myself and hide from this. Every time I see these kinds of industry reports, it tells me that marketing directors and VPs are scared of marketing. They're scared to connect with other people at conferences. It's like the same fear of public speaking. Connect with people, just like David said, be authentic. People are not going to judge you. The hardest judge is going to be yourself because you don't like how you look or sound. And it still surprises me to this day that that is the barrier that keeps people out there from making this thing happen. Like literally, you just need an hour a month, just a couple 30-minute Zooms, and you don't even have to have the expertise. You're interviewing them or have someone else on your team do it. It surprises me that people aren't doing this.
Tap into the experts that you have at your disposal. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, exactly. Tap into the gold that lives in their brain. The thing that's surprising to me is Ogilvy took a stance and said, if you're not doing this, if you don't have a strategy around this, you're late to the party. And I think I'm thankful they took that stance because it's true, but it challenges the status quo, especially in B2B. But that surprised me that they took that strong of a stance to say,
they're calling everybody out.
Yeah, if you're not doing this and you don't have a strategy around this, you're late to the party. Yeah. And I think that's powerful. We see it every day because of the business that we're in, but it's encouraging to see a traditional publication like Ogilvy take the same stance.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. Well, that wraps up the conversation for today. So thank you to everyone who joined in to learn more about the power of influencers in B2B marketing. Thank you to our panelists, Dennis and David, for coming on the show today to share their insights. It's been a pleasure.
Thank y'all.
Of course.
Thank
and
you,
as always, if you want to learn more, please visit MarketScale.com to view more episodes like these of Experts Talk. I've been your host, Gabrielle. Thanks for tuning in.